Hello and welcome, everybody. Happy Friday. It is my pleasure to be with all of you today. For those of you who don't know who I am, my name's Maria Marquis, and here at Coda, I focus on customer education. So helping people develop the skills they'll need to be successful using Coda in their day-to-day work. Now, lucky for all of you, just a second. Working from home. There's
Yeah,
always
we're
something
working
that'll
from
pop
home.
up, right? But lucky for all of you, I'm also joined by my fabulous colleague, John. John, want to introduce yourself to the group in case folks don't know your celebrity status and who you are?
Celebrity for like the five people who know me. So thanks, Maria. I've been at Coda for about a year and a half. I was actually using Coda for quite a while at my last company, and I get to work with all of our lovely makers and clients building really awesome docs. So that's my main day to day. But on the rare occasion, I get to hang out with Maria on a Friday morning.
Lucky enough for me. Now, today we're going to be talking about how to build a delightful doc. And I'm actually going to paste a link over here in chat. In case you haven't seen this, this is an amazing guide that John published using all of his really wonderful perspectives on what he's seen work really well with our customers. And we're going to really break it down into a process for all of you today. But John, I think it'd be helpful for folks to just hear the origin story of this doc. Where did the idea come from? What were you trying to solve? And just give us like an inside look at the history of this doc here.
Yeah, absolutely. So the doc, I've honestly been working on this for over a year. It's been in my head. I've been talking about it, but I actually haven't put it down in paper.
Mm-hmm.
So where it comes from is actually two parts. One of all the apps I've used in my life, whether it's Asana, Salesforce, Trello, Basecamp, even Gmail and Google Calendar, and starting to look at some of the patterns that make those really fun to use and maybe not fun to use.
Sure.
And then the others from working with makers. So people like Camille at Netflix and Lane at Full Story and some of the others who have built these really cool docs. And we've talked about the patterns, and sometimes you don't like really know them, but you feel them, and you've like adopted them from all the other tools that you've used.
Right.
So we've taken the best apps, and then I'm trying to just like put it down in words so others can take all of our lovely things we built and kind of make it for their own.
Yeah. And something you bring up that I really like is that we know when something feels right, but we may not always know why it feels good.
Yeah.
And something like, I don't know, this just doesn't feel good to me. So trying to figure out like what are those patterns and the habits and the behaviors that really drive that feeling of like, this feels awesome versus like, oh, please stop. So we're going to go through top to bottom the principles that John has put together based on his work with all of our lovely customers. Also, Camille is here. Hey, Camille, good to see you.
Hey.
We'll just have you talk about your doc. Why not? But I want to make sure that everybody knows how to get in touch with us if you need to today, because John and I really love to work with customers. That's why we do the jobs that we do. So it's a lot more fun for us to hear from you instead of just us talking on and on, even though we could talk about Coda for days on end. So there's a couple of things you can do. You can use the chat field, which some of you have already found already. That's over on the right side of your screen. Feel free, pop any thoughts, feelings, emotional outbursts in there, ideas. That's your place to go ahead and post whatever's on your mind. But also, if you have a question today, I'd love it if you could just put it in the Ask a Question button below John and my faces. If you click on that, you'll be able to log your question. We won't then lose it. I'll be keeping a really close eye on that as we move through today. And also, if you're not sure, like, I don't know what my question is, but I'm curious about what other people are asking, you can also click on that and then upvote other questions. So if you see something that you're also curious about, go ahead and upvote it. That makes sure that John and I answer the most pressing questions that are on your mind. Also, over inside of the chat field, and I'll just go ahead and paste it again, I've got the doc that John and I are going to be working in. So feel free, come on in there and lurk, observe. I'll be happy to work with you there. So with all that housekeeping out of the way, I'm going to go ahead, share my screen, and let's start talking about how to build that beautiful, delightful, wonderful doc experience. So you should see my screen. Go ahead, let me know. That look okay, John?
Looks wonderful, Maria.
Oh, fabulous. Wonderful. Wonderful. So, this is the doc that John built, the full guide with all of the goodies, which you're more than welcome to go ahead and copy for yourself, bookmark it. I know I do because I find it really valuable. But let's kind of break it down from scratch. Let's imagine that John and I have a project that we need to start managing because a lot of times when people first come to Coda, we notice that managing your stuff ends up being a common core that everybody's really working through. So let's take a look at what I've got already. I've got a big table. It lists the projects that I'm working on, the tasks that need to happen, what team it is, the owner of the task, so I know who to bug if they're not getting their job done. Joe, he's such a slouch,
Right.
the effort, start and end date, and also status. So there's a lot of things going on here. There's a lot of information. And while this would be perfectly suitable for John, Joe, and I to use, there's a couple things that we can really do to make this feel more fun to use, more enjoyable, and more delightful. Also, new feature alert. If you haven't seen this, we have a new type of list, which is a collapsible list, which I totally love. You can get to it just from your formatting menu up here. Great for like nested tasks or nested note taking, or anytime you want to kind of have a nice clean view. You can always just click, hey, make that go away or make it go down. So the first thing we want to do is we want to look at our data. So John, do you want to talk a little bit about how you think about parsing the data by tracking your things and people, dates, and status?
Sure.
This is the thing that
Yeah,
I find most
absolutely.
valuable getting started. Yeah.
And it's funny because when you're coming over from Excel, Google Sheets, whatever sort of spreadsheet tracker, everything is kind of treated the same, and you just put
Yeah.
in your data, and it all sort of makes sense. And then if you're looking at a database, it's like super structured, and you have to like define all the attributes, and Coda is
Yeah.
somewhere in between that. So
Mhm.
when you're building these tables, the first thing I like to think about is like what is the main thing that I'm tracking? And
Mhm.
in this case, it's a project tracker, it's a task tracker. We're putting together like the teams and the owners, but it's really the tasks that we're tracking. And you can see that little flag next to task. What we have
Doo-doo.
is something called a display column. So display columns are where you can reference this table anywhere within the doc. And
Mhm.
sometimes in database language, this is called the key. This is just making sure that we're like calling the row the right thing when we're looking at
Yeah.
it in other ways.
Yeah. And I think, the display column, I know when I came into Coda, it was something that took me a little bit of a moment to really figure out. And a way that I think it's really helpful to make sure you're asking, is this the right display column? Is to be like, all right, if I'm thinking about all this stuff here inside of my table, what does all this stuff describe? Because that's really what a table's about. It's about a bunch of almost like adjectives, things that are describing something, that are giving you more information. So if I think about why having a task be my display column makes sense, all of the other stuff in this table describes the task, right? The team that owns the task, who is owning it from a person perspective, how much effort that task is going to take, when is that task due, what is the task's status, what project is that task part of. So it's a good way to just double check, like, all right, does it make
Yeah.
sense? And if you make a mistake, you're like, oh, this is the wrong display column. No problem. You can always just click the top of any of these columns and you can go ahead and choose to set as display column. So you could change it. You could change it every day, right? Maybe on Mondays you want the display column to be something else, Friday something else. Not recommended, but it's in your power should you see fit. So once you've got your thing and you know the thing that you're tracking, it's time to start thinking about people because people are a key part of anything getting done, right? If we don't know who owns it or who's in charge of it or who's connected to it, we're missing a big part of the puzzle. And so much about making a delightful doc is about making it for the people that are going to be using it. So John, do you want to show the magic of changing an owner column to a person type?
Oh yeah, absolutely. Should I do it from my side to flip the
Yeah,
magic,
because
or
we can go
will
ahead
you
and
drive?
yeah, come on, do it down your side. We'll do a little collaborative stuff. We can go back and forth on it.
Okay, awesome.
Mhm,
So right now you can just see is Joe and my name in here, which is super common when I'm copying and pasting
mhm.
from a spreadsheet. But what you can do is you can actually, it's showing my selection there, that's funny. You can flip it from a text column, which is what it is right now, to a people column.
Mhm,
And what it'll do is if you have it all hooked up with their Gmail or Google Suite in this case, is it's going to find that person and pull in their picture. And we can talk a bit about what you can do off the back end, but this is some of the first things that make it feel like people are actually in there and collaborating with you. Is now we have a drop down with Joe and my name, but also if you click there, it should have the other people who are on the doc as well.
And one thing to notice is that right now, if you see on my screen, you've got Joe is listed, and then there's this little icon that shows a person and a plus sign. It means that this doc hasn't been shared with him yet, but I could go ahead and just click that and add him. And, we have this little show more option. You can then choose from all your other contacts. Now, this is what's called a column format, and this means you're changing how the column appears and looks. And by clicking on that little option and choosing people options, you then get a whole bunch of other ideas. So you can change the type, but you can also then say, you know what, I want to allow for multiple people to be selected here. Maybe there's going to be a lot of collaboration on tasks. They're bigger. We could also say, do I want to notify people when they're added? So it's a great way to build in that reminder, hey, a task has been assigned to you, Coda takes care of it. You can then have people get subscribed to the comments on this row once they're added. And maybe you don't want to see their name. You just want to see their beautiful faces. You could go ahead and toggle on that display the avatar, which anytime you're doing multiple selections, like I'm doing right now, maybe Joe and Maria are also on this with John, I find the avatar just looks really clean, which again, it's all about how do we make it feel better? John, from your experience, any other recommendations you would make to folks who are thinking about adding a people type to their database and kind of how to manage that? Any other best practices you think are good for folks to know?
Yeah, absolutely. So the first one, it's actually what you're just calling out there is the notify when added. It feels great to notify your team instead of having to email them on an ongoing basis. So I would highly suggest throwing that on. But when you're building your doc, it's sometimes like a whoops moment of assigning a whole bunch of people when you're playing around and structuring it and then accidentally notifying them.
Yes.
So I'll definitely suggest turning that off so you don't get people angry. And then when it's time to introduce the team to these really cool things you're building, then toggle that on.
Yeah, this is kind of, in my mind, this setting here is like unveiling, right? You can go behind the curtains, do all of your magic, and then go, it's me. I have a perfect doc. It's ready for you now. Yeah, awesome. So in this case, the other things that you'll be finding when you're looking at your data are what is the thing you're tracking? Who's involved? When is it due? And then usually status is the other thing that folks want to add. And we recommend making that a drop-down menu just like so, which is just another one of your column format types. So those are the basics, but then we want to think about how can we create scalability because we want our docs to grow with us. So what we're going to do now is John and I are going to take a look at how we can really convert this into something that's going to grow a little bit more. So the first thing that we like to think about is what are the parts of this table that we might be using in a bunch of other places in this doc as it grows. So something you can do, right now we've got, for example, the team here. It's a drop-down menu. This is just a basic select list column type. So we did that by going to column format and just choosing select list from this menu. But maybe the teams are going to be something we use in a bunch of other places in this doc, or maybe we want to track some other parts of the team. What you can do is you have this option to convert it to a table. So if I just click on this convert to table, I can choose what I want to call it. We'll call this the team directory. That seems like a good name for this table. And then we can decide where do we want that table to go. My recommendation is to always put it in a new section, mostly because I really like to have one purpose per section that I'm working on. I don't like to have that clutter. John, do you find yourself doing the same thing or do you like to consolidate?
I was going to ask you before you said what your favorite thing to do for below or in the new section. When I'm launching a doc, I like to have it in another section because it's really clear where it should hang out. When I'm just starting to build, I like to keep it below the table so I can see what changes I make and toggle really quickly in between. So it's kind of like in my doc building journey where I like to put it. I totally agree with you.
Yeah.
When we're launching it, throw it in a new section. It's a lot easier to communicate.
And the other thing is that all of this is editable, right? Just because I'm choosing, I put it in a new section and I click create doesn't mean that it's stuck there forever, right? Over here on the side, I see in my section list, I now have the team directory. I can always just go ahead and do Command X. I'm on a Mac today, so I could just cut it and then come to my task tracker and, be like, oh gosh, I want to actually have this here so I can track it. do Command V, paste it right there, and it's still going to hold true. So notice what just happened here. Now we have this different treatment on this part here. So I see that it's got more details. That's letting me know that this is now a lookup column type. And you'll notice the icon up here has changed. I also like to do this for status. So you can just go click on status, go to your options, convert that to a table. You can have the same option, new section or the current table. I'm going to pop it in a new section this time. And you notice we have the new treatment here. And then we could also do the same thing for the project, right? Maybe we want to have that project element. So we can go say, hey, convert to a new table, and we could put that in a new section or below. So now what happens is we've got these other tables that we can start to work with. And this allows us to do some really fun things. So the first thing it allows us to do is do chip colors. So we could actually have some color coding going on. So maybe we want to do some color coding around our different teams. So we could say, all right, let's go to the options over here for the team. And we're going to do something called conditional formatting and adding a rule. So I'll say, great, if the team is going to be containing the engineering, then what I want it to do is I want it to be like red. Why not? And we could go ahead and do that. Actually, we don't want contains, we want is equal to. My bad. We can go ahead and press enter. Get on out of there. Oh, John, what am I doing incorrect? There's something incorrect that I'm doing.
We can also just color the through highlighting as well if we want.
Oh, true. Yeah.
If that's not very nice.
Well, we can go ahead and just do that. Maybe I want this to be red, and we're going to make this one pink. Seems fun for sales. Design, let's make design blue. Marketing, that seems green to me. And support, what color should support be, John? What do you think?
Oh, well, red's already engineering, so orange seems just right.
Orange, great. Yeah. So notice we've done the highlighting down here, and now we're seeing we've got the little beautiful color coding happening up here as well. So it's a fun way to add that. I like doing this particularly for status. Status is so critical to have that color coding. Yeah. So we could do the same thing of like, all right, if it's pending, yeah, go ahead, John, you go ahead and change that up. If it's done, active,
on this with you.
Yeah. Yellow, and John's going to go ahead and change pending. Nice. So now, if you notice, when we come back to the task tracker, as John is jamming on that status area, notice we all of a sudden see all of that formatting happening over here as well. So we can see, great, done is now green. And if I change from active to done, it's going back to that color coding. So we've got this really great way to add some immediate flavor, which again, if we think about delightfulness, so much of delightfulness is how things look, right? That colorful aspect to it. So the other thing that this converting to table allows us to do is it allows us to add more information. So for example, if we think about these projects, there's probably a lot of information about the project that we'd want to know as well. So we can add that to the projects table. So let's go ahead and open up that side view. We're going to head to our beautiful little project area. We can see this table that automatically happened. We can resize it, and we can add some columns here. Like maybe we want to have a text column that is a description where we can say this project is all about making our product feel great, or whatever we want. Make them happy. Go ahead and put whatever you want there for descriptions. And what you could do then is you could also add maybe the project owner. So who is the ultimately accountable person? We could choose that people column type. Congratulations, John, you're going to create the welcoming experience. I'm going to delight our customers. That seems really fun to me. And Joe can have launching an awesome MVP. And we could maybe add another element around, maybe we want to pull in information from our OKRs, like which OKR this goes to. We could add an image, we could add buttons, we can do all kinds of things. Maybe we want to have like a launch date. Yeah. So there's lots of things we can add to this project table. Now, what this does is it helps us describe the project. Notice we have that as our display column here. But this also allows us to make sure that this information follows everywhere else. So John is going to go ahead and add some one-word elements there. Beautiful. I love it. And then if we head back to our task tracker, and we go to one of these areas, notice if I hover over it, it shows me all of that relevant information about it. So not only does creating those tables for lookup make a nice standardized experience and allow you to add that flavor through chip coloring, but it also allows you to include more context. And notice we have this little pop open icon. If I click on that, it opens it up into a nice big view. I can now see, ooh, John, you've added some fabulous pictures. Cool. And we can make this look different too, right? So I'm going to go ahead and click on this little shish kebab right up here. And I'm going to choose to customize the layout. Now I want to definitely change things around. So maybe I want to choose this option here. We have create a welcoming experience. I want to put the picture up at the top and drag that in so it feels really, really good. Yeah, we got a nice cover photo, then a beautiful, nice heading there. We got a description. Maybe I want to put the people right over here next to the one word. And now when I click
Or
done,
just hide me.
yeah, just hide you. Who needs John there? I do.
Yeah, there
I
we
need
go.
you. But now we've got this nice new look and feel. So you can really change every element of it to be able to make those changes. Then the other nice thing is if I were to click this open, and this is just the row, I can go ahead and have comments here as well. So I could be like, hey, at John, can you give an overview in our team meeting today? Oh my goodness, I cannot type. Team meeting today. And be able to have that, and John and I can have a conversation here. I can subscribe to those comments. So it's starting to take some shape. Ooh, great question, Sagar, which is, ooh, where do we see that layout button again? No problem. Anytime you're popping open a row or one of your different table elements, one of the things you do is you just click on the little shish kebab, those 3 dots, and choose customize layout. And we've got a couple quick styles you can choose from. If you're not a designer, no problem. But you can always just drag and drop things around as much as you like. And if you create something you love, go ahead and just save it as a new layout. And then you can use it anywhere else in your doc. Yeah, great question. Love it. Also, just a reminder here today, you don't have to wait for John and I to stop talking. If you've got a question, post it to chat or the ask a question area. We are more than happy to answer any and all questions that you might have. So we've done the first part of John's recommendations, which is really taking a look at your data and getting it clear on what you're tracking and why. So the next thing we want to do is we want to start making different views. So John, I'd love to hear from you around kind of as you were thinking about this step in making a beautiful doc based on how you've seen it work in other apps and kind of why the view element became so important to you. Could you chat a little bit about that? Ooh, oh, you're adding icons.
There we go.
I love it. No problem.
Yeah,
Never apologize for
wrote
making
in little personality.
And yeah,
well,
just by
it kind of
adding
ties into this next part of it.
Yeah, totally. So
oh, no.
when it comes,
our internets are crashing.
Oh no.
So I was going to say, for creating views for different teams, it kind of gets back to this point. So oftentimes in these like trackers, or you can even think of like a Google Sheet, often teams will create their own sheets or their own tabs, or in some other project trackers, there's like little hub spaces for each of the teams. So that's a common element is we see each team creating their own like version and view and the way that they like to see this table. Some people love tables. Other teams like design don't love seeing things in tables. So being able to design like not only the views that they like expect and want to see, but also just like their own spaces makes people like own and feel like they want to use the tool.
Totally. And I think the other element is you want to think about what people are going to do naturally and then create as much of that natural behavior in your doc, right? People are going to try and figure out, how do I make this make sense for my brain anyway? So we might as well create that as part of the DNA of our doc. So there are 2 main types of views to think about. The first is individual views, so for personality. And then the other one is sort of stakeholder view, right? Like, is there an individual or is there like a group of people who are interested in the same thing? So when it comes to individuals, I think one of the biggest things that I see new people dealing with is, how do I just make it really clear for the people on my team what they need to do? So one of my favorite things is to create a view that is dynamic based on the user. So I'm going to go over here. I'm going to create a new little section. And we're going to call this My Tasks. And what we could do now is we could add an icon. Maybe we want to do like a megaphone. I think there's a megaphone in here. Yeah, ooh, this one is great, nice and red. So now what I'm going to do is instead of making a copy of what we've already done, I'm going to make a view, which means that any updates we do in either place are going to hold true in the other. So we could go up here to the plus sign and add it, but I know all of you want to get fancy. So just do a slash and then you can type table and it's going to go ahead and search that. I can go ahead and pull table. And now notice it's giving me the option. Do you want to make a new table or do you want to make a new task of something that's already done? So I'm going to choose this all together option. And now we've got something we can start to work with. So this is all the same data that we just saw. So notice it still has the comment. It's got all of the treatments that we're seeing. But now what we're going to do is we're going to add a filter. So we're going to do that by going up here to filter. This honestly is probably the most important skill for someone who's new in Coda is figuring out how to filter. Once you know how to do that, you're unstoppable. So you can click on add a filter. And in this case, we want it to be about the owner. And in this case, we're going to choose current user. So you don't even have to use a formula here. So now what it's going to do is it's going to filter this view based on the owner and who's logged in. So I'm Maria Marquis. It's only showing me Maria Marquis. John, can you do me a favor?
Something.
Yeah, assign me some stuff. Oh no,
yeah.
I've got too many tasks. So notice as things get assigned to me, I all of a sudden, I better start calling people. Quick, get your phone out. Go for it. So this is now updating automatically for me. Now, John, on your side, you see all of your tasks. So it's a great way to just create one area that automatically shows everybody, hey, here's your tasks. You don't have to make a separate view for every single person. It's automatically updated. They can make changes to it. So it's a really powerful way to make it super easy for people to go, what do I need to do? Well, you just go to my tasks. And I always like to drag that user dynamic view to the very top. So it's like just right there at the top. You don't have to think too hard about it, and it's right there. John, any other recommendations you have for kind of making user-specific views or kind of how you've approached that with customers in the past?
So for the my user, there's two things that I like to do. First, like you said, bring it to the top when you're first sharing your doc with the team or asking them to bookmark it. This is usually the section that you want them to bookmark, so they come in with like their own context and their own tasks, and can really focus on like what part of the doc speaks to them. The second part is, if we want, we don't have to, is put a button to create new tasks here.
Ooh,
you can always click enter or click the little plus in the bottom of the table to add new things, but I found the create new row or new task button to be really awesome.
Oh yeah, add a new task. All right, and then what we'll do is we'll do action, and we'll choose add a row, and we'll choose the table. In this case, if we choose whichever one, all tasks together makes sense. And then my pro tip, I'm sure you do this too, John, is for the owner to have this equal the user. Why I like this is if you're going to add a new task, usually it's going to be assigned to you, and I like that as just kind of an option there. You can open the row for editing, which will show that popped up view that we saw before with the layout, or you could just have it automatically add one, and then you can choose a color, and then whichever icon speaks to you. John, which icon is speaking to you today?
Thumbs up, Maria.
Oh, thumbs up.
Looking good.
Yes, beautiful. So now we've got it really easy. You just click add a new task. It's going to pop a new row in, and you can enter in all the stuff. And notice it's automatically assigned to me because of that formula. Cool. And I find buttons are just a great thing to include across the board because buttons allow you to modify rows, add rows, delete things, notify. And again, if we're thinking about building that delightful experience, it feels a lot more like an app and less like kind of a dead spreadsheet. Yeah. So
Cool.
the next type of view that we want to think about are stakeholder views, because maybe we've got our boss wants to get a full picture of what's going on at the project level, or maybe they're really interested in seeing all of the urgent things or all of the things that are for a particular team. So we can also make a special view for our stakeholders, again, so they don't have to worry about pinging us, being like, hey, what's the status of this? We can create a special area that's just for them. So I'm going to create a new section again. And we're going to call this Stakeholder View. Stakeholder Hub. Maybe that's cool. In this case, let's see if there's a stake. as an icon. Yes,
Oh, I was
perfect.
going to say, let's put a steak as the cover photo too. We can start
Ooh,
making this look
yeah.
fun.
Nice. So John did that by going to options and choosing add a cover photo. Let's see what comes up. Ooh, I'm hungry now. That
Woo!
looks absolutely delicious.
Awesome.
So what we're going to do is do that slash and choose table again, just like before. And we're going to do that same view of all tasks together. And now what we're going to do is we're going to change how we set this up. So first of all, we're just going to call this the stakeholder view of tasks. Now we could do the filter formula like we saw before, but what we're going to do something a little different here is we're going to add filtering and controls together, because oftentimes our stakeholders are going to be interested in several different things, right? Maybe they just want to see marketing right now, or they just want to see certain projects. So we're going to add a control, and it creates kind of a dashboard type view. So I'm going to do slash and control. I can go ahead and search for that. And notice down here, we've got the controls option. We're going to choose a select list. And here we're going to call this the project selector. And now, instead of choosing just to type in the items, we actually want to connect this to our projects. So we're going to choose the formula option here. And we're going to choose all tasks together dot project. In Coda speak, that dot is just saying, hey, first look at this and then look at this other element. So we're saying, look at all tasks and then show me the projects. So now if we press on enter, from this drop-down menu, we'll see all of our handy little projects automatically there, which is great. And notice if you hover, you get that same deep dive experience into everything. So in case the stakeholder forgets, like, oh, what's the project? They can actually get all the details. So now we can give you a little option here. So it's like select a project, and now we've got that. We have this dropdown, we have this stuff. Let's go ahead and make some more space for ourselves here. Now we can add a filter off of this handy little control. So we can go ahead and say, all right, let's choose filter. It's going to pop open our handy filter menu. And here we're going to say project. And now we could choose one of these, but that's not what we want to do. We want to choose this little drop down and choose uses interactive filter this time. Now we can select that control, project selector. Boom, now it's there. So notice it's blank, so it's only showing the blank projects. If I were to say, oh, this blank task is actually part of Delight Our Customers, it gets filtered out. But now I can click on this menu and say, you know what, as a stakeholder, I want to see the status of all the Delight Our Customers. Ah, look at that. It looks like we're doing pretty well. Nice and handy. And we could add as many of these as we like. So we could add one for team, we could add one for status, we could add one for person. So it allows us to create this handy dashboard for our stakeholders so they're able to see everything that is interesting to them at any given time. And notice how John is now adding a couple different elements of formatting to make it look really nice. Maybe we don't want to see the title here. I'm going to go ahead under options. Actually, oh no, we've changed where that is. We're going to click on the little shish kebab over here, and I'm going to choose hide title. And now it looks much cleaner. So we've got this really great view. John, anything else that you do for stakeholder views that you find is really valuable?
So there's two things actually on this interactive filter. The way that you did it was top and then linked to the bottom, which is how I used to always do it. I've actually been doing it the other way now, of right-clicking on the column and then creating an interactive filter from there.
Oh,
it's like preference now, but I found that just be a little faster too.
Yeah, let's see. So right-click on the column. Filter. Oh, interactive filter. That's right. I totally forgot. We have this control now. That's right. Oh my gosh. And now you've got this drop down and it's got everything automatically. Ah, John, I totally forgot about this. And
beautiful.
It's so ridiculous. So here's all of the design and delight. Well, John, you just made my day. It's so funny. I remember this being demoed and I just still have my old muscle memory habit. So we could also
what happens when things come out so fast with Coda. You're always like, whoa, Maria, you can do this?
That's right. And let's do it over here too. We'll right click on status, interactive filter, and create control. So now we've got this automatic dashboard and we can see everything. And let's choose sales and all of that. And if you ever want to change these to be multi-selects, you can just right click on that and choose allow multiple selections and toggle that baby on, just like so. Cool.
So that's the first thing that I would do for the filters. The other
Changed my life today.
Yeah, Maria. Since this is a project,
Mhm.
oftentimes like PMs want to share out like timelines, whether it's a
Yeah.
Gantt chart or a
Mm,
calendar view or something like that with the executives or whoever that they're trying to share with. So I've seen that be like a really common stakeholder view is to have
yeah.
some sort of like visual on top of this
Mhm.
table.
Yeah, so let's go ahead and do that. I think probably Gantt makes the most sense, yeah?
Yeah, I think so too.
So let's just choose, we can actually type Gantt if we know we're looking for it. We'll choose that. Now we can make a new Gantt chart, but we don't want that. We want the all tasks together. So this is going to show us the exact same information, but it's going to show it to us as a Gantt. And notice it's pulling in the start and end date columns to help us out. We could have the access be automatic, but maybe we want to see it by month or by quarter. We could go ahead and change that however we want. And now we've got this handy little view, and let's call this Gantt. Now, something I really like to do, because notice here we've got all of those different tasks listed. I really love to group by kind of the macro level. Like here, seeing every task by project would probably be helpful. So I'm going to click on the top menu here, choose group, group it along the left. Now I still have the same information, but it's going to allow me to have that here, and I can go ahead and expand that side. We get the same grouping coming in here if we wanted to, and be able to have that really great connection. So we can also choose our options and make changes however we want here. We can go ahead and group here as well. We're going to add that group by project. And now we've got a really great way of seeing all that, just like so. And notice this Gantt is being filtered as well. Yeah.
And
So
actually,
we've
Maria,
got this
I learned
handy
something
little
from
area.
you
Yeah.
for creating the filter
Oh,
first
really?
and then doing the filter to
Uh-huh.
whatever you're looking at, Gantt chart or table. So I just connected the team and the status to the Gantt chart. I didn't know you could do that. So
Yay!
you just taught me something too.
Fabulous. I'm so glad that we're able to learn. Oh, and here I love what John is doing. Notice before we had the controls one on top of each other, but notice you can do this kind of horizontal look as well. Yeah, cool.
Looking great.
So again, you can make views based on whatever you want. Something I see a lot is a view of all the urgent things. So everything that's been escalated. How do we make that happen? We can also make views for the team. So like, let's make a view just for the marketing team, and then they can customize it however they want. They can see it all in sort of a Trello experience. Making views for different projects. So, all right, this is where all of the things for this project is. Or maybe you want to connect these to OKRs that you're working on and making different views for OKRs. Any other common stakeholder view patterns that you see, John, in your experience?
So these are the ones that I've personally seen.
Mhm.
But Yuki and Yishin's Uber project tracker doc like notoriously had that pie chart of like how close that they're getting
Yeah.
to project completion. So that's another fun one that we've seen.
Mhm.
It's a little tricky. There's probably going to have to be some formulas that we write in
Yeah.
this, but
Mhm.
that's fun.
Yeah, but at the very least, you could do a formula of like how many tasks are equal to done divided by how many
Right.
tasks are not done, or the
Yeah.
total task that you want to do it. Yeah. So just think about, I think here is like, what do my stakeholders need? What do they need to know? What are the common questions they're asking me? And then can I make a view of everything that is going to answer that question for them? Another fun thing that you could do is, let's say that every Monday you want to send like a summary report to your stakeholders.
Mm.
What you could do is you could actually decide to create an automation and be able to do that. So you could go for your automations over here on the side. You could add a rule and you could say when, let's see, how about every Wednesday, not row changed, every time Wednesday at 9 a.m. Then you might want to email a section. So we could actually connect our Gmail account and be able to have it automatically email this section every Monday for us. You could also, if it's maybe not automatic, but you want to be able to send an email every once in a while, you could just do / and we have a handy little indoc template. If you start typing email, notice email a section is here. You could go ahead and just add that. What it will do is it will add some handy little plumbing here. So you can include the email addresses that you want to send to and just remove this flavor text, as much as I love that little corgi puppy, and remove the my section. And now what you could do, and let's actually collapse this too by clicking the shish kebab and choosing collapse content. You could click on this email this section, to the addresses in this table, and it'll automatically email out this full section to your stakeholders. So a really nice way, they don't even have to come into the Coda doc to get the information. And then by sending out that information, they would be like, oh, I want to see more of that. And then that's a great way to get them to come in as well. Awesome. Anything else around views, John, that you think is helpful for folks to know? Otherwise, we'll move into front of house, back of house, on stage, backstage, however we might want to think about it.
Totally. I love the example that you put in here with the emailing a section out, because that's usually something a PM or whoever is managing a project is manually updating, copy and pasting into an email. But we can take it one step further by doing an automation. We don't have to show the setup, but what I've seen is people doing like Monday at 10 a.m. we're sending the email updates.
Yeah, and here what you could do, if you've got this button, instead of having to add a bunch of other stuff here, you could just say push button and then push the email this section button. So it automatically does it for you. You don't have to do a bunch of fancy stuff. You just put that button in and you're ready to go. Yeah, and then you just make sure you turn it on. Always make sure you do that. Have you tried turning it on and off again? So now we've got this really sort of growing element. And notice what John has done. He's added beautiful icons over here. So if I were to click on that, I could be like, I don't like this. I want us to be a dragon team. We could do that too. But you know what, John, I actually think this is a really good one. Let's do the people together. So you can add those icons, and then you can add the cover photos like we saw here under your options, and just choosing to add that cover photo. But now, if we think about this, if we're sharing this with people, one thing that makes docs feel delightful or feel good is that if it's really clear exactly what you need to do, and there's not a bunch of other stuff. Oh, I'm so glad you're enjoying the session. And also, thank you for joining us at the end of your day in the UK. Beautiful. Is now what we can do is we can decide how we want to organize this by thinking about what is backstage and what is on stage. So John, I love this terminology that you've coined. Do you want to talk a little bit more about what you mean by backstage, on stage?
Yeah, absolutely. You're asking me, who's not the actor.
That's all right. I won't hold it against you.
So adopted from theater, I'm really into service design, and in service design, when you're designing an experience like jumping into a lift or coming to a hotel or a restaurant, there's actually a physical front stage and backstage. At a restaurant, there's the place where you eat, you sit down, there's waiters, and then there's backstage, which is the kitchen and where everyone does the dishes and the refrigerators. So the same actually applies within most apps. When you're using them, you're almost always using the front stage. And in the backstage, there's like database and code and all that sort of stuff. In Coda, everything is kind of front stagey, but when people are using your doc, you can tuck away some of the things that you've used to build up the structure of it, and then really highlight those areas where you want the people to interact, that looks great, that feels like the front of a restaurant, that has like all the branding and the nice tables. And then you can tuck away some of the kitchen and the dishwashing elements into another folder.
You can hide your dirty dishes. No one will ever see.
Yes, that's right. That's right.
Ooh, hey, John, we've got, oh, cool. Awesome. We had somebody, Clifford is joining us from the UK, has been watching us on YouTube, but finally got in. Nice. Beautiful. Great. So as far as how this can work, is you can choose, and this will actually be changing very shortly, but it'll be essentially the same process, just some different names of things. But you could go ahead and make like a folder, and then go ahead and tuck away those dirty dishes of your project information, of the statuses, of the team directory. Like those aren't going to be things that people are working with all the time. And then you can go ahead and just decide to pop that task tracker up at the top. And now you could say, all right, let's hide this whole section. And maybe we just want to call this, the data layer is usually what we call it, just the data. And then you could say, let's hide it. And now notice how our app that we're building is much clearer. Now we can see, I just want to work on my stuff. I just want to work on the stakeholder stuff, or I just want to see everything. So it's a way to kind of have that be very clear. We're not distracting people with things that they don't need. We're not cluttering their view. We're not confusing them with extra stuff. And the data layer is something that people don't need to work with consistently. So let's just go ahead and hide it away. Any other things that you recommend, John, as far as building that front stage, backstage?
Those were the big ones. Yeah, we nailed it. Thanks.
And then if you ever need to see them again, because you're the great person, you can always just click and choose Show Hidden Sections, and you can go ahead and get on in there. Yeah. Cool. So we can go ahead and just work with that and go ahead and collapse it and open it up again. So now the last thing in building a delightful doc is making a welcome section. Now, John, I really love the way that you talk about this in your building a delightful doc, which again, I will go ahead and grab this link for everybody to be able to bookmark and hold it close to their hearts because I find it's just an absolute gold mine. But the idea of welcoming, can you talk a little bit about what you noticed in patterns of apps and how they think about welcoming people into the space?
Absolutely. So there's two things that I saw with apps welcoming. One is oftentimes there's some sort of email journey or even a personal reach out from the team when you sign up for apps like Greenhouse or
Yeah.
Jira or whatnot. So having some of that like communication about what the value of the app is and why you should use it, since it's your app that you're building for your team or at least your doc that's starting to feel a little bit like an app, you can do the same thing and talk about the value and why you built it and some of the background. And what's cool is it's coming from you, not coming from some other team that thinks this is the way that you should manage projects or this is the best CRM in the world. It's your team, so hopefully you have some context of how the team is using it and how hard it was before and what you're like hoping the team will get out of using the doc. So that's one aspect. And the other aspect is oftentimes when you just come into an app, and actually we do this at Coda too, is there's almost like a tutorial that guides you into what you should do as a user. So giving some of that instruction and launch off point, in this case, it's a task tracker. So telling new users who come in how to add tasks and where the My Task is and what it's built for. Those have been really helpful for framing and also kind of like guiding people towards success in your doc.
Yeah. And also thinking about long term, right? You hope that your teams and your business will grow. And what happens when that new hire comes in and they're like, this is our task tracker. What do I do? It's a great way to educate any new user that's coming in. And you can also really make this feel welcoming as well. It's kind of like you're inviting somebody over to your home. You don't want to have dirty laundry out on the floor and like not have food and drinks ready for people. You want it to be very nice and like have some good music playing and really make people feel like excited. So a couple of the big ways to do it, as we saw with our fabulous steak cover photo, is to add that cover photo. If you have a great image that you already love, feel free to use it. But me, I don't have a lot of design experience, so I just choose to go from Unsplash. I have a giant golden retriever, so I'm going to just choose golden retriever. I'm sure there's some great golden retriever content out here. Look at how welcoming this one is. And now maybe I want to reposition this. I can click on that little dot and just reposition. So we've got this happy little dog that's greeting you here. And if you don't like it, you can always just go ahead and say, let's choose a different one. And we could choose something a little more corporate if we wanted to. So lots of options from that first step. The next thing you can do is you can give context about how to use this thing. So welcome to the team tracker. We've got a few areas to help us get the job done. And you could also include, like John was saying, what was the previous problem that people were having? How does this solve it? And you could say, first, check out your own tasks here. And we can actually include a link to the My Tasks section. So I'm going to go ahead from here, this little drop down, choose link. Now you could have the link be to anything on the internet, but here I'm just going to choose My Tasks. Now it's a nice little hot button there, but my pro tip, if you just click on that and choose edit, over here you can say, I want to actually see this as a card instead. And now we've got a nice little hotspot. And if I were to change the cover photo over here in My Tasks, let's go ahead, choose from Unsplash, coffee. That's my first task every day. And we head back to welcome. Notice it's got that image. So it's starting to take shape as more of an app. And then I could say, next, check out all the tasks here. And we could do the same thing of including that little URL, choosing it for the all tasks tracker part, and then converting it to a card view. And then we could include another one for like, hey, are you a stakeholder? Go ahead and have that. So let's go ahead and add a link here. We'll choose for the all tasks, and we'll go ahead and hover, choose on edit, And we're going to go ahead and change that to be a card view. And we could also do the same thing of adding a really great cover photo over in all tasks, just over there, clicking on add cover and choosing from Unsplash. And we'll choose this coffee cup instead. So now we've got this beautiful thing starting to take place. Another thing that you can do is you can also decide to change the look of this particular page. So we could go to options over here, and we could choose to add a subtitle if we wanted to include more details about it. We could also add an outline to show all of the different headings that we have. And then we could also show the author. Maybe I want to claim my space. And maybe you don't like this standard font. Go ahead and change it to be a serif. It feels a little bit more like a text document in this case. And notice John can also add himself, so we can be co-authors on this and also have that connection. So now, all of a sudden, this page is feeling a lot better. We've got clear clear instructions about where to go. We can include as much context as we want. I know on our team here, our support team includes details of the process for triaging. How do we define certain terms? You can really treat this almost like a little bit of a mini wiki, if you will. John, anything else from welcome pages that you find to be really, really important for folks?
So this is sort of self-serving for Coda for folks to be successful there, but I've noticed a lot of folks, especially if they have like a technical writer on the team, will love to describe what Coda is. Oftentimes these docs, like it's a new feeling, it's a new type of doc for the team, so they haven't seen Coda before. So telling them about like how to navigate in sections and why the team chose to use Coda has been really helpful. And then the other, which is kind of funny, is warnings. You see this in like docs and Excel sheets all the time, but you rarely see this in apps. Is like what you probably shouldn't do as a user. So some of the funniest welcoming copy comes from the warning section.
Do's and don'ts. Thinking about this again, like as a welcome section, the purpose is to make it really clear how to use this so nobody makes a mistake, because nobody wants to make a mistake, particularly if you're new in a new system or a new person on a team. Like nobody wants that. So using this as an opportunity to be really clear. And if you're noticing it's starting to get kind of long, one of the things I like to do is to add headings. So you can go ahead and just say, all right, here are our cool headings. And then you can choose to click the shish kebab and collapse the content. So notice how all of a sudden this is allowing us to have that really easy way to understand, to structure their experience. And then if you were to go back to the options and choose to toggle on that outline, notice the outline has this over here. We can jump to every part and it automatically opens it up for us. So a really great way to like have that feel like home. Awesome. Let's see. The other thing that I find when John was talking about, describing what Coda is, another great opportunity is you can just embed things here. So we've got tons of videos, as I'm sure you've seen us talking before, and you can, just like we saw with the embedding here, you could, instead of choosing a section, you could link to one of our Coda videos and have it automatically be here. People can press play, watch it right in the doc, and you can also get to that from the plus sign, choosing embed, and be able to choose from YouTube or even do a backslash. So great, John is going to do it for us. Beautiful. So here we go. You could now introduce Coda. You could go ahead and press play. You can include a little header there as well. Yeah. I love it. Benjamin says, I want a ringtone of Maria saying shish kebab. You know what? I'll see what I can do on that. That is the first time I've heard that request, but I hope it is not the last. That is definitely something that I love. The other thing you could do is say, hey, you know what? I want to have this be centered. I don't want this left aligned stuff. You go ahead and do that too. Yeah.
Nice.
So the idea is that it's all about your creativity, your team, and building for what you want your team's experience to be like. And again, go ahead, use this Building a Delightful Doc. It's published on John's profile. You could also just search Building a Delightful Doc and it shows up on Google. So here we've got John's welcome section. What is this thing? Notice the great use of outlines over here on the side. You can jump right to that, which is
I love serif.
I know, right? Then we've got the whole thing about welcoming, how to think about it. We've got tables, how to think about tables, views, and then the front and back stage. So this is a great recap of everything that we've talked about today. So we've got about 5 minutes left. So I want to make sure we can answer any questions that you had. Ooh, great question from Benjamin. What is the thought process around effort? You had that as a column in your
Oh,
task table. John, do you want to talk a little bit about effort and what we mean by that?
yeah, the effort's a funny thing. So I come from the project management world of professional services. So effort often meant hours for
Yeah.
consultants or accountants or lawyers. But increasingly, especially in the digital agency space, effort started meaning like story points
Mm,
for clients or like retainer based ongoing points. And then for us internally, effort is sometimes like days within the
yep.
sprint or just like generally how hard it is. So that's how I think
Yeah.
about effort. What about you?
Yeah, the way that I think about it is like not all tasks are created equal, right? You can't say each task is going to take the same amount of time. So if I have 20 tasks, it'll be 20 days, right? There might be some tasks you get it done in 5 minutes, some that are going to take a bit longer. So effort is a column type that you can use to just better communicate how much work is actually ahead of you. Now, I wouldn't say it's a requirement. It's something that if your team is already using that concept, definitely make sure that it's part of your Coda doc. But if it's not part of how your team does business, don't feel pressured like you have to add it. Yeah.
Yeah.
Great question, Benjamin.
On
Beautiful.
effort, it's easy to do utilization calculations, but
Mhm.
like Maria says, not every team does it. It's almost a barrier to sometimes doing the test. I work
Yeah.
with a design team who uses t-shirt sizing. It was the first time
Yes.
I ever heard of that, of like small, medium, large, or maybe even extra large for a big
Mhm.
task. So that's an option too.
Yeah. But I mean, I think the idea is that sometimes when we're in a tool, we feel pressured to use all the things.
Yeah.
But for me, the most important thing is to remind yourself that the tool works for you. And it's all about how do you take all the things that are in your brain, your team's brain, and document it. You don't have to add more or less than what is just right for you. You can always add more things if you want to, but in general, I find if you don't have a good reason to include something, it's just extra work that doesn't need to do anything. Yeah. Awesome. We've got about 3 minutes left. So if you need to see something again, if you just want to try and stump John, you can go ahead and give that a go. Or if there's anything Coda related that you're curious about, just let us know. We are here for the next 3 minutes. So if there's anything you need, please let us know. Otherwise, hope you found this helpful. Take a look at the docs that you have, give them a little bit of a spruce up, and then let us know how we can be of service. And of course, more than anything, stay safe, stay healthy, enjoy your weekend, and we cannot wait to see what you Coda. All right. Ooh, great question here. Any place to dig into automation ideas that Coda can do? Yeah. So there's a couple different things. John, can you head to the template gallery? I think we have that automation starter kit.
That's what I was thinking too.
Yeah.
Didn't you
Um,
build it?
I think I did. Yeah.
Yeah.
I think I might have built it, but it might be in the Coda profile with the new doc gallery.
Okay, we have
Um,
automation power to-do list, which is part of the Coda
ooh,
quick starts. That sounds
yeah,
about
that's
right.
cool. But
Yeah,
yeah, so I would say that
I'll
is a
put that
great
in there.
place. I will also head to our help center. I believe we have a automations idea there as well. Go ahead and see if I can find a really good one here for you. Yeah, this will be a great one. So this using automations, this has a couple automation examples, just like that. So those two resources should be really helpful. I will say when it comes to automations, I think it's really good to start with like what is taking me the most time and then finding a way to automate that. And then also thinking about what are the handoff processes that you have in your business. Maybe, first it has to go to marketing, then it has to go to review number one, then review number two. You can automate that with changing rows to be assigning to new people when certain things change. So that's a really good way to start it up as well. And then also the other thing to think about is that with Packs, you can connect Coda to a bunch of the other applications that you use. So you can have some automations use those as well. One that I find all the time is to do a Slack reminder if something changes, or to do an email summary every day, things like that. John, any other wonderful, brilliant recommendations you have as far as thinking about what kind of automations you might want to employ?
I usually like to think of it of like two phases of me learning automations. The first is the if and then that formula of automations. And I found just getting my feet wet that setting up the if of like Monday morning at 10 a.m. is by far the
Mhm.
easiest thing to set up. And then
Totally.
the that or what happens or kind of like the trigger is pressing a button like we showed. So
Mhm.
what we set up is by far the easiest, and it's actually the most satisfying getting an email
So true.
automatically from a doc.
Yes.
And then the next step is when things change within the
Mhm.
doc, like if the status changes or if the assignment
Yeah,
changes.
totally. Cool. And also, the other thing is that anytime you're like, ooh, I wonder if, you can always get in touch with us at support@coda.io, and we'll be able to help out there too as well. But the other thing is that when you open the automations panel on the side, it'll give you a couple of examples there too. Yeah. But I like to think about automations. It's kind of like having Coda be your intern or your administrative assistant. It
Yeah.
can take care of some of the like burdensome, repetitive tasks. But I think that's the thing is like, is it repetitive? Is it consistent? And is it frequent? Those are the things that are going to let you know it's automatable. That's a word now. I've just decided. Any other questions from everybody? I know we are at time, but if there's anything else that we can answer for you, please let us know. And of course, always stay in touch. Also, we will be hosting even more crowdcasts, so definitely follow us on our channel. You'll be notified anytime we go live. And please let us know what else you're curious about, what else you'd like to dive in with. I personally just want to thank my fabulous colleague, John, for taking time out of his
Thanks,
very
Maria.
busy schedule to share some of his thoughts and ideas. I think these best practices are both simple, but also incredibly powerful. And it breaks down this how do I build something great into a really usable process. So, John, you're brilliant. Thank you so much.
Thanks, Maria.
And thank all of you for joining us today. Have a great weekend, and we'll see you in the next session. All right, everyone. See you later.
Thanks, Maria. Thanks, everyone.
Yeah, thanks, John. Bye.